episode 2, taking it back. So yeah, shout out to us for episode 2. Episode 1 was fine in terms of whatever. Our short did really good. I clipped out our little Matt Rife thing. Posted on TikTok, posted on YouTube Short. Did 2,000 each, so at least got a little bit of traction. The podcast long form is always going to take a lot, a more long time to get ripping. It's at 96 right now, which is actually more than I thought. So 96 in an hour-long format showcases whatever. So I'm glad about that. I'm not even joking. Shout out Alec Miller. He commented below and he's like, I think someone accidentally put a question mark in the title. I think it was Jay probably messed that up. And we were at like 5 views at that point. I took the question mark off. And instead it was like Matt Rife is a scumbag question mark. Matt Rife is a scumbag. Boom, 90 views just from no question mark. So boom, Absolutely. algorithm figuring you out, my guy. Tato, how you feeling, bud?
Feeling good, Ski. Glad to be back here. Fucking yeah, shit's been good.
There you go.
Sorry.
Jay, how you feeling? Your food's not here yet. You're a little on edge. Your blood sugar not really messing with you. How you feeling?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not diabetic. I'm just fat, dude. There's a fucking difference, you dick. Holy fuck. No, I'm doing great, bud. Thanks for again making it on time and us sitting here having a fucking conversation. Can't wait to see which one of the dumbass poses you made me do that you choose. And I hope it's not even any of them. I hope it's something I do during the episode.
I mean, as long as you do it, it's gonna be a dumbass pose. So that makes a lot. Just your face. Yeah. All right. There's no way to even go about this. We're talking about this Katt Williams thing because I already know for a fact that it's going to be 90% of this episode because we have 3 different opinions just in life of the 3 of us, and I know that we're all going to approach this differently, even if it's from certain things that he said. So, give a little backstory. Obviously, it's one of the most viewed, if not the most viewed, podcast right now. So everyone and their mama who's on the internet has seen it, but still get a little backstory. So Katt Williams went on the Shannon Sharp podcast, Club Shay, a couple days ago, last week now at this point, or 2 weeks ago by the time this episode's up, because still working on that. So and I don't know, I didn't watch the entire thing, so give a little backstory just on my side. I didn't watch the entire episode. I just watched the highlighted, the clip version of it, but it was like 45 minutes in total of the almost 3-hour episode. So I did get a good chunk of, the point. And especially as, me, I follow, a lot of comedy. So just kind of getting the backstory on that regard. But so, yeah, he goes on there and he's just spilling a lot of tea. And, the main conversation is essentially one of like 3 things. One, is what he's saying true or not? 2, is he out here looking for clout? Because people still technically do it, but not as much as they kind of would earlier because people are so, in a position to get themselves out there and to get attention that it doesn't need to be as fabricated. So that's why people are more inclined to at least believe him, or at least believe the majority of what he says. And then 3, do we even care about Katt Williams in general, just regardless of what he's saying? So give a little opinion just based on those 3 facts. Tato, what are your thoughts going into this on Katt Williams as a whole?
Yeah, based on your 3 things, I think there's probably just a lot of gray. And likely in any given situation that was brought up on the podcast, that he probably said some things that were true, probably exaggerated a thing or 2 as well. And he probably does want clout, but there was probably more to it than just wanting clout as well. And Katt Williams is definitely like one of the greatest comics to ever do it. I think like maybe not like God tier, like Carlin, Pryor. He's not up there, but he's definitely A tier probably. He's definitely one of the best comics to ever do it. He's funny as shit. Yeah. I neglected who had mentioned it. Maybe it was Michael Blackson. Forgive me if I'm fucking up. The comedian who did respond, threw up his top 5 black comics of all time, had Katt at number 4, I think. Which I think is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So yeah, Katt's a legend, but has maybe also the comedian who said that through we agree that he's not Katt from 2005 at this point. But yeah, so a legend I think is to be listened to and respected, and for those who want to go deeper into finding out the truth, they would probably have to search that out on their own.
Absolutely. Jay, what are your thoughts on just Katt Williams as a whole, and a kind of a little starter opinion on just the podcast?
Okay. I love a lot of what Katt Williams does, from like Money Mike to his stand-up specials to, again, I think everybody's favorite line is, "Whose goddamn white baby is that?" The man is funny. Don't get me wrong, and I look at him a little differently after everything that he's gone through over the last couple of years. But to sit down with Onk and do this fucking podcast, I do have opinions on it, but I'm gonna save it until we actually get into like a main discussion about it. I know it's not our entire thing, but that's gonna be like the focal point here. But I do love me some Katt Williams. A pimp named Slickback, you gotta say the whole thing. Yes, you have to say the whole thing. He's mad funny, and he definitely, Tato's right. I think he speaks in a lot of grays. And he doesn't come off as a narcissist, but there is definitely like pathological liars that sound exactly like him. And I'm not saying that to like defame the motherfucker by any means, but you grow up with a bunch of people who lie and tell stories the way that this man tells stories, and you kind of see a pattern. And that's where I'm at with it. But I actually watched like I've got like 15 minutes left in the episode or of the podcast itself. So like I'm at like 2 hours and 36 minutes of this 2 hour and 50-minute fucking podcast.
There you go. Yeah. So for me, Katt Williams, I'm actually going to be honest. I'm actually more familiar with him from like essentially, I don't want to say clips because clips weren't as popular back in the day, but just like highlights of just random, parts of his bits. I don't think I've ever seen a single start to finish of any of his specials, but I am familiar with a lot of his. Yeah, I would definitely be down to react to that stuff. But I'm not as familiar with just his whole, spiel as a stand-up comedian, but I am familiar with him. Obviously, his Money Mike and Friday. Friday is one of my favorite movies, and I love the trilogy. And then just other, different various parts of the acting, and just kind of just interviews and stuff like that. Just hearing him talk, and like I said, clips and different bits from what he's doing. So I guess my main one that my main point essentially that I want to have in terms of my opinion is like what Jay was saying of just in terms of the narcissism or just the pathological liar aspect. It sometimes when you are on the defensive because you're trying to get your point across, like Shannon brought up, aren't you afraid of being blackballed? And he's like, I don't need to be black. It's essentially, and I'm going to be a little jumbled here, but it's like why I love the Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz and Akash. Their whole bit when they first started during the pandemic, all that stuff is like, you can't cancel us because at the end of the day, the fans and our viewers are who is supporting us. Like even as comedians, it's who's showing up to the shows. So at the end of the day, media doesn't need to accept them. You don't need to be in the movies. You don't need to be in that stuff. So in terms of with Katt, it's essentially that's what he was pointing. He's like, I don't care about none of that stuff. I turned all that down. Whether that's true or not, that's always going to be part of the question. But in terms of how he feels deep in his mind and just the backbone of what he's saying, he's like, I genuinely believe that I can stand in this here and say this because the people that know, and the people that don't know can be maybe educated. And I genuinely feel that he meant that. So like Taylor was saying, maybe it's some gray areas and stuff, and maybe some exaggerated points of it. But I do genuinely believe that the heart and soul of his points throughout the majority and the entire of the podcast of the episode is in his mind. It's everyone has their own truth always. What do they say? There's 3 sides to every story. His side, that one side, B side, and then the truth. And I do genuinely think that this is probably in that gray area of the truth and his side. Like, I do believe a lot of that he was saying, and I do believe that he believes a lot of what he was saying. So first and foremost, I'm always willing to give people a listen, in terms of just their opinion. As someone personally who's been through my issues of dealing with, dramatizations of character and just, Chinese telephone. I don't know if that term's even allowed to say anymore, but telephone of the Asian variety.
Just telephone.
We just call it phone. Yeah. That part, at the end of the day, he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. I do remember the one clip when he got in that fight and he was all, looked all janky up. Honestly, in my opinion, I've never even known for a fact if he was ever used drugs, and the fact that he was adamant about that. He's never touched a single hard drug. Obviously, he emphasized hard drug because obviously he probably smoked weed and drank alcohol. But in terms of like hard drugs, like crack, cocaine, all that stuff, meth, heroin, I assume that's what he's referring to, and I tend to believe him, but I do think the narrative at some point, I was like, pretty sure that motherfucker was on some drugs. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was hands on that showcases that ideas and opinions can be forced based on just word of mouth, not from the source. So I do respect him going up there and, saying what he needed to say his piece and all that stuff. Tato, what do you think in terms of just character? Do you think about, how he went about the situation? Do you think it was the right way to go about it in general, knowing that this was the topic that he was trying to discuss?
So I will say first off that I have not seen the pod. I've only seen like a 14-minute analysis of it and stuff like that. And I caught a bit of what he was saying about Kevin and Cedric and stuff like that. So I don't want to speak too much without knowing the topic, of course. But I will say I think he's, again, probably a good dude. He probably is speaking his truth. And without knowing like too much the situation, if that's the angle he chose to go about it, that's fine by me. I'm not like cheesed at him for it. And I don't know like what else he would do. He did say the podcast was going to blow up, and it did. So I guess if you want to get your word out to the people, he chose the correct path, it seems.
There you go. All right, Jay. Give us just your thoughts now. I want to unload on that, and we'll try to rebut based on just your feelings.
No, absolutely. There are things that I took away from this pod that like I thoroughly enjoyed. Him and Unks back and forth. Shannon being able to ask questions and him actually like contemplating and like taking a moment before just jumping in and answering a question is one of those things that I really don't think enough people who like do things like this and in this medium understand. You can take a second. Yes, dead air is deadly in a lot of ways, but if you take a moment to sit here and fully formulate what you're about to say, you won't stutter as much. There's a lot that goes on in this, from like him calling Cedric the Entertainer a walrus, him not being able to get his hands off his stomach while talking to Unk in his own episode, to like what he said about Ricky Smiley, to what he said about Kevin Hart. Like there's a lot going on here.
Yep.
Is it all true? No, probably not. Is most of it true? I couldn't tell you. I'm not in those rooms. But he also brought up some Harvey Schweinstein stuff. And called out Diddy. Honestly, he's not the first celebrity to call out Diddy. I don't know if anybody remembers that little bop from a couple of years ago by Eminem called Kill Shot, but M called him out too, like in a different fashion.
Yep.
But the more and more people that keep bringing it up and the more and more people that talk about shit like that really kind of makes it impossible to be like, okay, maybe that's not the case. Absolutely. You know what I'm
saying? No, I'm talking about your clothes. You're all class X.
So with the situation, talking about the Weinstein and the Diddy aspect, to go away from the comedy aspect just for a second. I feel like you're more inclined to believe those things because those don't feel provoked. That just feels like at this point I'm spilling tea. Let's just continue the conversation. I'm just kind of, because he mentioned the thing. He was like, back in the day, I mentioned Harvey Weinstein already, and I got blackballed for it then. So why would I be afraid about being blackballed today? I'm just spitting facts that I've been saying. So you don't have to believe me today because of popularity, because all the Kevin Hart stuff. Like out of everyone he talked about, Kevin Hart's the most popular out of all of them. So I know that one's always going to hit the hardest because that's just going to be a sore spot for fans. But you're also intend to believe at least fragments of it because you're like, I said that, not on the same, I don't want to put Kevin Hart and Harvey Weinstein in the same,
Did you hear the other thing that he said about Weinstein?
About him, the getting the roles and the
no. Yeah. The sucking it.
Yeah.
Sucking it. Like in a room full of people.
Yeah. So, and that's one of those things that what's the old saying? You literally can't make that up. It's so specific. You know what I mean? He could have went vaguer about it, or he could have flipped the roles and said he had him do it. You know what I mean? And that could also be for his manhood, where he's like, I don't even want that to be clipped out. Someone say, oh, blah, blah, suck. Maybe that was a PR move on his end, but the specifics, or at least the
in Bobby Lee fashion, points, I just want to hold it in between my fingers and roll it around.
Jesus Christ. Exactly. but I will say it was obviously a joke, but it wasn't meant to be a joke when he was like, yeah, and I clearly turned him down, but then I walk in, I see 3 other black actors there. I'm like, what did you guys do to get here? He's like, I turned him down. Why are you guys here? And it's just one of those things where I'm like, Hollywood's got a Hollywood, my guy. You know what I mean? People like to always, look over the fact just how women in Hollywood are treated, and the movements and the moves that men disgustingly put towards women. But you got to realize this is going to the men too. Like, I've heard about this plenty of times just in the porn industry, where there's a lot of male porn stars that have to do gay porn just so they can get work, and then eventually they can work up their popularity just to get into regular. And it's just like people don't realize just how it's not equally weighed in terms of male versus female, in terms of inappropriate behavior and disgusting move actions, but it's a lot more than you would assume, and you're definitely a lot more than you've heard about. So anyway, everything they said about the Weinstein and the Diddy stuff, it's once again, it's unprovoked. So you're inclined to not necessarily believe it, but just to believe that there's more truth than fiction. Now with the Smiley stuff and the Cedric stuff and the Harvey stuff, Steve Harvey, I'm more inclined to believe those as well, because similar to what I was just saying about those, they're not as relevant. He's not getting likes and attention and clicks based on those names. So you're not dropping those names unless you're just airing out things that I've been holding on to for a long time. You know what I mean? That's just like me.
They did shout out Earthquake and say the Earthquake was underrated and got blackballed because he only got like a 20-minute special. I do agree with that as well. So
I can't taste racism.
I thought that Earthquake comment was that one time that Cedric fell on the floor. Anyway, so as I was saying,
no, they were talking about Faison Love.
Facts, bro. He was like, Faison is never
from one big dude to another. They were talking about Faison.
Yeah, Faison has never had stand up. What are you talking about? But the one what really stuck out to me was I never heard of it before because I don't really listen to Steve Harvey, but he was like the Steve Harvey thing of being homeless. That was my story, and it's one of those things like people steal stories, dude. People steal jokes, people steal identities, anything that you can get likes and attention. Because once you build up a fan base, that stuff no one brings it back up, because especially if it's traumatic or if it's got some bad memories and some bad history, no one's going to bring it back up. So they're going to put their foot in the door because of your traumatic experience and how they relate to you. But as long as you're entertaining, they'll stay in there and it doesn't come back up, because now all of a sudden you're positive. You're not thinking about the negative stuff. So it's like, I'm inclined to believe that as well. And that's just crazy.
It's like the Ranazizi 9/11 thing.
Can you run that by? What do you mean?
Steve Ranazizi from the league, Kevin, said he was at 9/11 and he was not. And then it didn't come out until like fucking
15 years later.
I remember that now. Yeah, I remember. I forgot why he got in trouble or some issues, and that's one of those. And that's always that's the thing. So I guess transition this naturally. What are your guys' thoughts on just the concept of joke stealing? Do you think that happens as much, or do you think it's it's like movies where it's like, as long as it's close, long as the foundation is there, but the root is there, but the toppings and the insides are not obviously one for one, then it's not as gross? Or do you think all jokes need to be 100% original? Tato?
There's definitely a realm of great minds think alike. And the pilot named Wong Wei fucking crashes the plane. Everyone's got that joke and shit like that. Or in the movie trivia community, we've all got our jokes that kind of get repeated and everyone says, oh, that's the question, and blah blah blah. Those things
a lot of those I made up, but I won't go there. No.
But yeah, I am definitely not pro joke thieving. I think it's pretty clear when you can tell like a joke has been stolen, like the Little Dicky show and like Little Dicky and Theo having a bit of a beef over the wood shirt bit. Like a kid wearing a wood shirt in school is so out of pocket and original that's like a Theo thing. So for Dicky to put it in his show is weird, I feel. Or any number of Amy Schumer bits, which are clearly fucking ripped and shit. So, but there are times when there are just like great minds think alike and the joke comes out similar and shit happens.
Absolutely. Jay, what are your thoughts? Do you think
Joke Thieves bad?
Well, Joke Thieves definitely bad, but I think it's prevalent in an industry where you thrive off of praise of others, and if you see somebody being praised and it's not you, you want that, so you're going to try to emulate it as much as possible. But in emulation, you don't just emulate it, you don't try to make it your own, you just steal the joke and change a couple of things up. That's not emulating something, that's just a flat out thievery.
Yeah.
Like look at fucking Carlos Mencia, another stand-up comedian that nobody talks about, who got fucking blasted for blatantly ripping off other people's jokes.
That's before Rogan was even, known.
No one had a problem with Joe at that point. Like everyone loved, like pretty much everyone loved Joe.
Yeah. So that's when you know it's legit, when like the guy called you out on your stuff and you're like, oof. So yeah.
So like that happens. Can I see it in this specific instance, like when we're talking about Katt, when we're talking about Steve, when we're talking about Cedric and the original Kings of Comedy, and like the comedy shows that he was on back in the day in like 98, right before the original Kings of Comedy came out? Yeah, I can. I don't like I said, I don't think that a lot of what
there's no receipts to check. Then there's like in the
there actually is. So
there is.
Yeah. So
I mean, I should rephrase that. It's not as easy to do as it is today. And shit
exactly.
Like that.
You can't just YouTube it as easier, or if you do, it's a bad copy, and then the dates you can't technically confirm the dates.
Yeah,
just getting the clips. So now it's he said versus she said. Where it's like the King of Comedy, you 100% know it came out in 2000. Can you technically confirm that BET special and bit was
the bit that he was doing was in 98?
Yeah.
No, but like technically, there's got to be a catalog that you can go back and look at some of those, because he quite specifically mentioned that it was in the commercial that they were using for that on BET, at least a portion of the joke, which means that at least some of it is out there somewhere, and somebody has to know that was another individual's joke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and as someone, I was able to, I watched Stevie Knight. He posted a reaction kind of, to Katt's thing, and then he went back and he looked up both bits, both Katt and Cedric's bits. So that was the first time I'd seen them both. And it was clear that Cedric's was exactly like Katt's, but not as good. I will say 100% not as good. Like I didn't even hear the crowd laughing, which is crazy, because that was supposed to be the whole point of it's so good. But anyway, and then Katt's bit, you can clearly tell it was on TV. It looked older, it looked grainy. It didn't look like a stand-up thing. So obviously it wasn't like a main special. So it wasn't as refined. Regardless of the years, it just makes sense just looking at it. You're like, yeah, this looks older. You know what I mean? And then from Cedric's point of view, I understand why he would do it, because even what he said, everything about Katt, he was like, think about today, nowadays. If you're, in order for you to steal a joke from someone, you're probably just doing it in person, and you're not fact checking the fact that, oh, it's out and about, it's on a YouTube clip or whatever. So you're like, oh, that was good. I don't know this name, so it means more people don't know this name. My fans probably don't know this name, so I'm gonna go about it. So even back in the day, that's probably exactly what Cedric did. He's like, man, this joke is really good. It's a shame, and I'm even trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's like, it's a shame no one's going to be able to see this joke, because this no name, brother is doing this joke. So let me go ahead and do it justice and do the joke. First of all, it did not great.
but even if that's the case, how do you not give accolades if that's the case? How do you not give accolades to the individual who actually came up with the joke, being like, hey, yo, I saw this dude, he did this joke? Like, granted, because I'm answering my own question, because at that point in time, it means that you're admitting to stealing somebody's joke.
That's like the conversation nowadays. So as someone who watches a lot of fitness YouTube and follows a lot of fitness influencers, if you're claiming natural status from like the early days to sell supplements, to sell your brand, to like show your image, like,
oh, you're a liar.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, even back in the early stages, you're doing it because that's what people are following you. Because, they're not just following you because in the early stages, they're not following you just because how big you are. They're following you because how they want to look like you. So if you're claiming natural, then it's more likely that they're going to look like you. So as say 10, 15 years go down the road, you're still claiming natural because you can't, at this point, you're too far gone. You can't
look at you, Liver King.
Exactly. Facts. Shout out Liver King.
Don't shout him out.
Michael Hearn. Negative shout outs.
Don't shout him out.
Shout outs can be negative. It's still shouting them out.
You're shouting them out in a positive way.
No, I'm shouting them out of this fake natty status, but I'm sprinkling up that turd. Anyway, it's just the way to how to handle this situation. So I assume that's exactly what Cedric did. He was just like yada yada yada. No one's gonna know, and then now it's too late to come back, and it's just a shame. So I understand the anger and the animosity from Katt on that 100%. What other? So we're going back into your issues. So what issues do you have, Jay, with it? Like, let's go into the negative aspect. Let's not necessarily negative, but more more issues.
I was going to say, it's not even necessarily that there's a negative to it. There are just certain things where I'm not saying that, because of certain situations that things couldn't be right. It's just like reading 3,000 books a year at 8 to 14. Now, is that 3,000 books between the ages of 8 and 14? Because the way that it's stated doesn't make that make sense. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but he also said that none of them were nonfiction books. They were all fiction and factual books. So is he reading them beginning to end? Like I said, I'm not asking this question to shit on him. It's just one of those really weird things where, like, a 4-year or 6-year span, reading 3,000 books wouldn't be a thing, but reading 14, almost 15,000 books or more in the span of that much time, and that one seems a little entrenched in mystery. Yes.
Yeah. So on that one, this is gonna sound like a cop out, but like that's the perfect like topic that I don't care. If that's the thing you want to lie about, that doesn't change. Like, if you're a comedian, that doesn't change your status as a comedian, for better or for worse. It doesn't do anything on this podcast. That doesn't add credibility to your shit talking them, and it doesn't knock you if someone finds your line. It's the perfect thing where it's like, if you
I played 5,000 games on my Twitch last year.
Facts. Yeah. Well, it's
and like, completed them beginning.
But what are the views? You know what I mean? Like, there's other stats that you need to go around. So that one does. It's like on Madden. Like when you go to, you're bumping up your tackling. That's not whatever, but you need your awareness. You need all the stats to really make who you are as a person. So like, you can fudge one up, and it doesn't. I don't know. That one I don't really care about. It doesn't really bother me.
There's the story about how he got to Florida. Sorry, I don't mean to keep.
No, go ahead.
But like his Rottweiler puppy get into the back of a semi truck in Michigan, and at no point in time did anybody check through any of that not necessarily for a child, but it never went through any inspection in any state from there to Florida. Is also another one of those really weird ones to me. Bless you.
So that's another one where I didn't see this part, so I don't know the context of this story, but just go to guess out of context. This is another one where I feel like this is him just trying to, whether it's true or not at this point, this is just to build the character. So I do feel like the combination of, let's talk about the books to build my intelligence, because I'm just not some crackhead off the street, which a lot of people were starting to think, or like he's afraid that the narrative is out there, so he's trying to build up his credibility. So I feel like a lot of these stories are not necessarily, the facts aren't the point. It's the build up the credibility to get to the ones that are actually the facts.
But the thing about that is you just said it yourself. The facts aren't the point. It's to build up the credibility. Without facts, you aren't credible.
Yeah. So, well, without attention, and I feel like these ones bring the attention to, like, all right, let me at least give him the chance to believe him. Whereas once again, if you're coming at Kevin Hart, you need to, which he didn't open with Kevin Hart, so I don't want to harp on that.
He opened with Ricky Smiley.
Exactly.
And he fucking laid into Ricky Smiley for like 45 minutes.
Exactly. But when you're going at, Kevin Hart, when you're going at all these wives, when you're going at Ludacris, when you're going at like the real names or the stuff that seems personal, people are automatically going to give you backlash, not because of, whether they believe your fact or not. It's the fact that they don't want to listen to you, and they're like, why would you say this out of nowhere? So whether the book stuff is real, whether the story is real, I do believe that he's saying it to build up character regardless, whether it's fact or not. You're bringing that up just to pad your stats. Yeah. And then the actual conversation, the meat of the conversation, is really why people are having issue to. That's the only thing that people really have an issue. All the other stuff is like unnecessary, fodder. And, I don't know. Like, I have plenty of random facts about me that no one would believe because it sounds crazy. Because if you beat me today, you would never believe it because, like, wow, that doesn't seem like something you've been through. So, I mean, I do know that there's a universe where all these are true. So, I don't know.
Well, no, same, because like we've all played the our portion of trivia during like a birthday match or whatever, where like we have all of the dumb stories and the weird shit that we've done, and it may or may not seem true or fantastical. But my thing about that is if you were coming out here to do the one thing that you're doing, which is spill tea on the industry and have this conversation, I don't think that lying or even like exaggerating or stretching the truth in that fashion is the way to gain that respect of the fan base. That being said, having listened to the entire thing, I had that in my mind from the point that shit started, and I still listened to it all. And I ended up overall enjoying him on the podcast.
Yeah. And that's where I was gonna go. My follow-up question. So obviously, Katt's a smart man. Whether he's 3,000 books smart or whether he's just smart, he's intelligent in some facet of the knowledge.
Yeah.
So he's also well calculated. He's a great businessman. He's a hustler. Do you think that he went into this podcast knowing that lying in any capacity is going to screw his image? So do you think you went into with that mindset? So why even risk lying? Because even though no one can fact check how many books he's read, the fact that he's even saying something in question, it better be a fact, or else automatically he's raising those questions. So do you think that possibility was in mind when he even said those things?
Yes and no. There's a point in the pod where he gets heated when he's talking about the last interview that I did with Wanda Smith, where she just is like, oh, I'm not going to talk about your kids. I'm not going to talk about any of this. And then the fucking green light goes on or the red light goes on. And that's exactly what she does. So like there might be some animosity or some defensiveness in that fashion when it comes to something like that, because I haven't watched that full interview. I've only seen clips of it. But
did you mean Wanda Sykes?
No, Wanda Smith.
Okay.
Gotcha. Wanda Smith, the radio personality, the one where she's like, I haven't. No, you're good, baby. The one where he's like, she's like, oh, I'm not the one who's been to jail 19 times, or I've got 19 felonies. No, charges, no convictions. I've never been to jail. That lady right there, I believe her name is Wanda Smith.
Gotcha. So do you also think that's a reason that he's also trying to build his, once again, whether it's true or not, do you think that he's just kind of forcing these narratives in there to like help change the overall narrative of Katt Williams in 2024? Because if you ask anyone a week ago, now at this point, we'll just say a month ago, if you ask anyone a month ago, what's their opinion? Where do you think Katt Williams is today? How many people are saying he's selling out shows? He's doing, all these shows. He's is he in movies? Is he alive? Does he have kids that he takes care of? Is he a crackhead? You know what I mean? How many assumptions or guesses, even just guesses, not even assumptions, but just wild guesses are negative. So do you think that he just went in knowing like, yo, let's just change the narrative? Because everything I'm about to say is going to get attention. So I don't want the headline to be washed up comedian bashes comedians. Jealous comedian bashes Kevin Hart. You know what I mean? Old school comedian, failure actor, comedic actor bashes Kevin Hart. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he's setting up the narrative of Katt Williams as a persona. So when the headlines come through, which obviously they did, that they're not negative. It's just Katt Williams, comedian Katt Williams. Nothing, not pronouns, but no adjectives on his name, and it's just who he is, and your memory, not even memory, but just the name Katt Williams. And I respect that, because at the end of the day, don't let my truths that I'm saying be watered down by your potential fictions and assumptions on who I am as a person, because what I'm saying is fact. Don't let it because when you try and speak underwater, you could say 1,000 facts underwater, but we can't hear you. It's muffled. I don't know what you're saying. And I feel like that's what the audience would be if they only had negative opinions and judgmental opinions for Katt Williams. So I respect that he at least tried to clear his name as a person.
Tato, 3 weeks ago, what were your opinions or thoughts on Katt Williams?
I would have just been like, yeah, fucking love that dude's specials. I have no idea what he's up to now. I would have not really made assumptions either positive or negative. I would have just probably had it crossed my mind, I would have just given it a go to see where he's at.
And I respect that. Now put yourself in the position of a non-rational person, which is 99% of the internet. Where do you think people are like? My last memory of Katt Williams is when he got in that fight with that kid or whatever.
Oh yeah, when he looked like he was a definite crack addict and he got the shit kicked out of him.
That is literally my last memory of Katt Williams. And what was that, like 2016, 20
some shit like that.
And I had probably forgotten about that, or like I remember it now that it gets brought up, but I hadn't remembered it or thought about it either. Like I said, I hadn't thought positive or negative. But yeah, I mean, if the internet fucking holds true to being the internet, it's fucking.
Let's go. Release date.
They're not. They're pro. Yeah, they're.
God damn it, Henry. All right, so I want to end on the Katt Williams stuff. So I actually have another major topic that I know it's gonna be brutal to talk about. But long story short, Katt Williams. Is this just headline of the week, or is this something that is going to define 2024, or is it one of those early, like analogy of a movie? Is it like one of those March releases? Oh shit, I forgot that came out this year. Is this going to hold true for history, or is this just a headliner for 1 week? Potato, go ahead. Doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna agree that this strikes me as a very that came out in March, that happened this year kind of thing. Like, it's significant enough now, but when you go watch the Joke World 2024 video, it'll pop up and shit like that. But yeah, this doesn't feel like anything that is going to seriously affect the comedy industry or Hollywood in any meaningful way.
Fact, especially the way Kevin Hart just brushed it off. Did you guys see the NBA today? Like when he was on there, or like during he
just went and promoted his movie, didn't he? Like just
and then
this is the trailer.
Kendrick Perkins kind of roasted him. He's like, you weren't saying all that when Katt Williams was calling you out, blah blah, and he just kind of brushed it off. Which I saw another comment where it was just like, if you're defaming someone's name, if you're slandering someone's name, you're getting sued, and no lawsuits are out right now, no headlines are out fighting it. So
yeah, the way every comic took it, like they all chirped on Twitter, which I mean, it made noise for sure, but like it doesn't seem like something that's going to be relevant in late February or anything like that. It just felt like everyone had to, like the Joe Rogan comedians that have no talent, that fucking.
I thought that bit was funny. I'm not gonna lie. When he said that, I got me a good chuckle.
I mean, because like Bird is probably the most significant one he's talking about in that situation. And I love Bert to death, obviously, and shit like that. Yeah, but Bert, Ari, Tom, Joe List, fucking all the people who responded, stuff like that. And I think those cats are all pretty funny. Like most of the comedians Joe has on are funny for the most part. And especially their EP guests. I fucking forgot where I was going with this point, but yeah, I think everyone chirped back and just like had a little joke with it. I don't think anyone is fucking crying their hearts out because Katt attacked them or anything like that. We'll see if it becomes an issue, but I do not predict it to be.
What do you think, Jay? Long term.
I think it's gonna cause more waves than anything else. Like, is this something that's gonna be forgotten by the end of the year? Maybe, but is the conversation that started by it going to make us look at the people who are mentioned in this conversation between Unk and Katt in a wider light and a deeper spectrum, and be like, okay, maybe some of the shit you're saying is being taken from somebody else. The only other thing that I wanted to say about it is Katt really does he's like, he brings something up, and it's about cancel culture essentially. And he's like, you can make a joke without having to use words that hurt other people's feelings. And it's just one of those quick blink and you miss it statements, but it's one of the ones that like I keep seeing and I keep rehearing. And he's like, if you're really as good of a comedian as you are and you have control of the language that you are crafting jokes in, you can make that joke funny without having to hurt anybody's feelings. And if you can't, maybe you shouldn't be here. And I agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely, as someone who is open to both lines of that, where it's like, I there's always a time and a place. So you can tell when something is like, it's the old example of like, just an R-rated movie. You're like, all right, you're just using the F word so many times. It just feels like you're just using it because you can.
Yeah, I've watched the Tarantino movie.
chill. Yeah. So shout out feet. Yeah. So it's one of those. Those bros.
Oh, I hate you so much.
Tearing toes nose. All right. So yeah, it's one of those
Tarantine toes.
Yeah, exactly.
Toes Bros are our team name, Henry.
Toes bros.
Let's go.
Those bros toes.
Toes bros nose. No, yeah, but long story short, it's one of those things that I definitely understand both sides. It's one of the, like, I genuinely believe that a lot of the comedians nowadays that are using offensive language that is like borderline, they're doing it on purpose. They're like, hey, I'm proving a point. I'm going to continue on, even though I say this. And then there are plenty where it is like, you didn't need to say that. Like, you could have said the same exact joke. So I do see both sides where it's like one side's proving a point. They're like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm only saying it just for the shock value and to prove that we're all going to be okay tomorrow. And then the other people that are like, they're using it as a crutch. They're like, I have to use harsh language. Like, how many comedians you ever watch where you're like, they're okay, but they're overly cussing and it just doesn't sound like a flow. It seems like they're just, whether it's the nerves or the inexperience or whatever, they're just overdoing. You know what I mean? I've had plenty of them. People I think are funny, but it's like, all right, I can tell, polish it up a little bit. I promise you're gonna cut your swear words in half just because it doesn't need to be said as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you don't need to have it there for shock value.
Yeah.
I
and
think
I'm not even talking about offensive words. I just mean cuss words in general. I genuinely feel like that's a crutch of just not being as polished, which goes to what you said about Katt. Like, if you're really that good, you don't need to use any types of language. And there's so many.
What were you saying?
Yeah, I think a good example of this is Tony Hinchcliffe's use of the F word. Where it's like it can be funny when he says it and stuff like that. It's like, okay, stuff like that, and it probably offends some people. But I don't think there's like a need for Tony not to do that necessarily because it's funny when he does it. So just because you can be funny without being crass does not mean you always have to play in that zone.
Yeah, exactly. And once it's a time and a place, I feel like you don't
always have to take the high road and be doing high comedy and shit like that because
but also read the room. If you walk into a room full of nuns, don't, I'm sure you should be able to construct jokes that are relevant to them or whatever, so
yes.
So yeah. All right. I didn't bring up this topic because I just kind of found out about this yesterday because I was up and about, or maybe the night before. But Johnathan Majors came out and talked. Did you guys see his interview?
I haven't seen the 60 Minutes interview.
There's ABC one.
Oh no, I haven't seen the interview.
Okay. Then yeah, we're gonna watch that and I'll edit versions of it so it's because I want you guys to be able to talk about it because it's once again okay. I didn't think about this as quote unquote homework, but oof man, this is when I
while he's pulling that up, just for my fans, the ones that know that I'm a Seattle fan because I know you out there.
Bitch pigeon.
Rest in peace to Pete Carroll's coaching career. We miss you, Coach Pete. Glad you're still within the organization. It sucks when you see somebody that like you've grown up watching coach your home team just fuck off to the wayside. But his exit interview that he was doing on the podium, masterclass in how you say goodbye. Like not only shouting out his wife, but like ultimately shouting out the team. Left no crumbs. Left no crumbs. But it sucks. But it leaves a power vacuum in Seattle. Who are they going to grab? Mike Vrabel just got fired. Dan Quinn's looking for a head coaching position. You think Dan Quinn going to come to Seattle? Like what's going on? What are your thoughts there, Taterino? While Henry's pulling us up.
Dan Quinn feels like a trap. No, I don't know. Yeah, Mike Vrabel.
As long as it's not Matt Patricia, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I did want to talk football and stuff, so I guess we'll take the opportunity to jam it all here. Vrabel, definitely a surprising firing for me. At least you guys seemed a little less.
Well, we talked about that a little bit last night off air, but I did say that he's had a majority of middling seasons, but he's had more wins in those seasons where he went mid than he's had losses.
I mean, he won the AFC. Like he had the best record in the AFC once, and like I guess maybe I didn't realize how long he's been there and shit. But it just feels like a weird season. Like considering the best quarterback he ever had was Ryan Tannehill, like doing what he did does not seem fireworthy to me.
First off, you got to learn how to work your goddamn YouTube, sir. It's called dark mode, son.
I don't see color. All right, you guys ready?
That is a lie. You do, because you got two different ones in the fucking corner of your screen, you motherfucker.
He was on his way to becoming one of Hollywood's brightest stars, with acclaim for his dramatic performances and a promising future as a Marvel villain. But now actor Johnathan Majors is facing the possibility of up to a year in jail after a conviction on misdemeanor reckless assault and harassment in connection with an altercation involving his then girlfriend. He sat down exclusively with me for his first interview since his arrest, discussing the relationship at the center of the trial, the role that he says race played, and why he didn't take the stand. Why did you decide you wanted to talk now?
I felt like it was time. A lot has happened in my personal life, in my career, in the culture, and conversely, the impact of this. It's about responsibility and coming forward and being brave and giving my part of the story.
In an ABC News exclusive, actor Johnathan Majors sat down with me in his first interview since a jury handed down a guilty verdict for reckless harassment, a misdemeanor, and a violation of harassment in the second degree.
You know, I haven't seen my daughter in a long time. You know, and a lot of it has to do with this situation. It all has to do with this situation, and she needs to see this, and the hard things need to be done. But it's been hard. You know, everything's kind of gone away.
The 34-year-old actor was a rising star.
This is our family story.
Known for his roles in HBO's Lovecraft Country, Creed 3,
I'm coming for everything.
and Marvel productions like last year's Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
You're an interesting man. Scott Lang.
And it was on that movie set back in 2021 where he met 30-year-old British dancer Grace Jabari. The pair dated until March of 2023 when Majors called 911 the day after a fight that was caught on surveillance video.
All right, so I want to do a quick pause there just to kind of get your guys' pre-opinions before we go into like his thoughts. Tato, what knowledge you have of the case, and what is just your current standing opinion on things?
I'd probably know about as much as anyone else without having gone into reading case files and shit like that. Seems to be a lot of he said, she said. Obviously, there is X amount of video footage and shit like that. Yeah, so it's just rough to say. I don't have, obviously, fucking domestic violence bad. That should obviously go without saying and whatnot. So hopefully that's not what was happening. Seems possible. Seems not good ultimately. But could be again, he said, she said, maybe. I don't know what happened without being there, but so far the interview does seem very damage control-y. He seems, and again, I'm not a fucking psychological expert or anything, but he seems very
rehearsed.
Kind of. What
would you say, like rehearsed, or what do you mean, like just?
Not so much rehearsed, but he's very much trying to think of his words as opposed to just being straight up with the story. And going back to what Jay was saying, thinking about your words before you say them is very important, especially in a situation.
I didn't want to spoil my opinion on it, but since I'd seen this, when Jay mentioned that triggered my memory of I'm ready to talk about this, because later on, whether whatever side you think it is, but there are moments in that where that triggered my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems very much like he's trying not to say the wrong thing as opposed to trying to say the right thing. Maybe
or just saying.
And again,
or just
or just speaking the truth. And again, I could be totally fucking off on that. I don't know the guy. I would like for him to be an awesome guy because I enjoy his fucking performances in those things that previously mentioned. I loved him in Creed. I enjoy him as Kang and shit like that. But like, I can't just be like, hey, good actor, so he can't be a piece of shit, because obviously great actors can be pieces of shit. We've seen it a million times.
Shout out! No, I'm just kidding. Jay, Jay, going into the interview, what are your thoughts on this situation?
So I do know kind of a little bit of what happened here, and I know the results of the court case. He got hit with like a 3rd degree or a 4th degree assault charge. That's what he got found guilty of, and that was him injuring her while trying to get out of the car that he was running away from her in. And it wasn't, oh, he beat the shit out of her the way that it was claimed. I feel like this isn't a thing that a lot of people have to go and do. But if you are going to be a major player in like a giant franchise moving forward, even if you've lost that at this point in time, like he's lost Kang in the MCU, but he was supposed to be the big bad for a lot of it. They didn't bring up Loki, which kind of surprises me because he was the big bad. And, anyways, but
television, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But they brought up Lovecraft Country. But my thing about that is like they're gonna sit here and this is gonna look like damage control for him. And I think this is more about him trying to get his side of the story out, because everybody only seems to see the he got found guilty portion of it and doesn't actually listen to what he got found guilty of. It was just a lot of people online jumped to the, oh, he was found guilty, see, he's a fucking woman beater and this is bullshit. No, the motherfucker got found guilty of unintentionally injuring somebody while trying to flee from a position where they were going to ultimately end up being hurt or being the hurt party.
Well, I'll add on to that a little bit, as you'll see in the clip. I don't know if you've seen it at any point, but they're gonna show later where he forces her into the car.
I would like to see more before forming more.
I just want to add to going into what you're saying, just to add on to it, just what you're saying. You're not wrong, and I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to add on to it's part of him putting her into the car, which forcible, movements, but not the headlines. Once again, that's why I was talking about with Katt. This interview going into this, it's one of those where it's like, it's just to rewrite the headlines. Now, because think about it. When you go to a YouTube title, newspaper, TV show, news headline, whatever, headlines are what, how many people are listening to the story, how many people are reading headlines? 100 to 1. 100 to 1 people are looking at the headlines, not reading the story. And I feel like he's trying to change the headline. So let's continue.
Yeah.
What happened exactly? Do you know?
No, I don't know. But she's unconscious. She's my ex-partner. Broke up. I came back. She sent me text messages insinuating as much. I stayed in a hotel last night. I came home this morning.
Police found Jabari on the closet floor of their apartment. Majors was arrested by New York City police, accused by Jabari of assault, strangulation, and harassment. Convicted last month, but acquitted of 1 count of assault and 1 count of aggravated harassment, meaning the jury didn't believe he assaulted her intentionally. Your reaction to that verdict?
Shock. I was absolutely shocked and afraid. I'm standing there, and the verdict comes down. I say, how is that possible? Based off the evidence, based off the prosecution's evidence, let alone our evidence. How is that possible?
After the verdict, in a statement, Jabari's attorney wrote in part, "Justice was finally served today, proving that the truth can prevail even in the face of power. Grace did not choose to be in this situation. Grace has been publicly attacked as a result of her courage to testify to the truth, but her unwavering resolve to see this case through to the end was born out of her desire to give other survivors similar courage when justice requires." The prosecution has described your relationship with Grace Jabari as tumultuous and abusive. How would you describe that 2-year relationship?
I love Grace. Our relationship was It was not healthy, you know, and that began to reveal itself over time, but there was no abuse.
In court, Jabari claims she sustained head injuries, but never said how she received them. Entered into evidence these partially redacted text messages from September of 2022. Majors writes, "It's just fake. And I fear you have no perspective of what could happen if you go to the hospital. They will ask you questions. And as I don't think you actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation, even if you do lie and they suspect something." Jabari responds in part, "I will tell the doctor I bumped my head. If I go, I'm going to give it one more day, but I can't sleep and I need some stronger painkillers. That's all. Why would I want to tell them what really happened when it's clear I want to be with you?"
This is literally a nightmare. I don't know what happened. I don't know what injuries you're talking about.
The July incident, 2022, where she says you started throwing things, including a candle. Tell us what happened there.
You know, we were in an argument. I was on the other side of the room, away from her, as I think she testified. And by my bedside table, I did a sweep, and I knocked over my candles. I completely lost my temper in that moment and threw it all on the ground. What she also said is that afterwards I wept and cried in the corner and said I was sorry and this. And I was, and I am.
The prosecution said you allegedly wrote, "I'm a monster, a horrible man, not capable of love. I'm killing myself soon. I've already put things in motion." Were you suicidal?
I've been diagnosed with severe depression, you know, and I'm taking the steps needed to alleviate, you know, some of those symptoms, ideations of removing myself from situations permanently is a thought that I've had, since I was a kid.
It all came to a head in March of last year when Jabari and Majors got into a fight, much of it captured on surveillance video and used as evidence in the trial. Jabari testified that it all began when Majors received a text from another woman. He says it read, "Oh, how I wish to be kissing you." So let's go back to March 25th for a moment. You and then girlfriend Grace Jabari are in the backseat of a chauffeured car. She sees a text from another woman. Things seem to spiral from there.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Yeah, the text from another woman. Again, I said at the beginning, you know, I did that. I cop to it. I show her, right? It's in my hand. She grabs it. We scuffle for the phone. I pull the phone back. I receive my injuries. I open the door. I step out. She comes. Then one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I pick her up. I put her back in the car. I'm trying to get rid of her. I'm trying to get away from her. As the video shows, you know. Everything calms. We get out. We walk across the street. I escort her across the street. The moment we get across the street, she grabs me. She goes for the phone. I release. I get free of her and I run.
For blocks?
Yeah, for blocks.
Surveillance video also shows Jabari talking to three strangers. She testified they offered to get her home. One of the bystanders can be seen speaking to Majors, who gestures for Jabari to get back into the car. He eventually leaves without her and goes to a hotel for the night. Jabari leaves with the bystanders. She says inside the car, you hit her in the face,
Yeah.
twist her arm behind her back, fracture her middle finger.
Yeah, that did not happen.
What happened?
She went to grab the phone. I held the phone. I pulled the phone back. She came on top of me, squeezed my face, slapped me. That's all I remember.
So she ends up with a 1-inch cut behind her ear.
Laceration, yes, ma'am.
Fractured finger.
Yeah.
How did those injuries come about?
I wish to God I knew. That would give clarity. That would give me some type of peace about it.
But you're confident you didn't.
I have no question.
What's interesting about the jury's verdict, it's so nuanced because they're saying you didn't intend
Right.
to injure her.
Right.
But the result of your recklessness
Right.
injured her.
Right.
Were you reckless?
I was reckless with her heart.
Not with her body.
Not with her body.
But never hit a woman.
Never hit a woman. My hands have never struck a woman. Ever. When the actual testimony came, the judge said she did everything, meaning Grace.
That was careful phrasing. I will admit
referring
that.
to myself.
Yeah.
Majors claims Jabari attacked him, ripping his coat, scratching his face and arm. These are photos he says are of his injuries, but were deemed inadmissible in court.
My injuries were a scratch on my hand, from clawing for the phone, and I had a gash on my. At the time, I had a beard. Under my beard, I had essentially a fingernail scratch on my I guess my cheek from pressure.
You chose not to take the witness stand. Why?
Yes, ma'am. The driver.
You felt that was compelling enough. He had said enough.
Well, not just the driver. She was doing everything, he was doing nothing. Well, that's what I was going to say. Mr. Majors, did you see any injuries on her? No, I didn't. Clinical experts, the detective I spoke to, all who testified before I did. But after all of that, what was I going to add?
Johnathan, how do you feel right During the trial, an audio recording was presented in court by the prosecution of Johnathan Majors and Grace Jabari during an argument.
How dare you come home drunk and disturb the peace of our house? Coretta Scott King. You know who that is? That's Martin Luther King's wife. Michelle Obama. Barack Obama's wife. My temper, my shit, my trauma, all that said, right? I'm not saying I'm a great man. A great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. The woman that supports me, that I support, that needs to be a great woman.
There are some who question, especially in the Black community, as you're probably well aware, that people were saying, well, why was he telling this woman to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama? Give us like the context of the conversation.
It was me trying to give an analogy of what it is I'm aspiring to be. These great men, Martin, President Obama, and trying to give a reference point to that. I was attempting, and I did a terrible job at it, apparently. I was attempting to motivate, to enlighten, to give perspective as into what it is I was hoping to get out of the relationship. I think that's fair.
In her closing argument, your attorney said that your greatest fear of being a Black man in America calling 911 came true, suggesting that race was a part of this. Do you feel that race is a part of this?
Yeah, of course it is, without question. That quote unquote guilty verdict, guilty verdict, no quote unquote, you might as well put that on my birth certificate.
You think a white man facing the same allegations would have been arrested, charged, convicted?
I'll take it further. If you watch those videos and you reverse that, and you saw a Black man chasing a young white girl down the street, screaming and crying, that man is going to be shot and killed in the streets of New York City. That Black man will feel that.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office responded saying in part that they do their speaking in court. Jabari's attorney responded to this interview saying, it is not at all surprising that Mr. Majors continues to take no accountability for his actions. His denigration of our jury system is not dissimilar from the above-the-law attitude that he has maintained throughout this legal process. The timing of these new statements demonstrates a clear lack of remorse for the actions for which he was found guilty and should make the sentencing decisions fairly easy for the court. Ms. Jabari will continue to speak the truth and seek justice in the appropriate forums in a continued effort to respect our legal process. Grace, as you know, was arrested and charged for assault, but will not face prosecution.
Right.
You have thoughts on that?
That's hurtful. That's really hurtful.
And pause real fast.
And why is it hurtful? Because
how are you gonna be found? Like, how are you gonna get charged with something and then not get any sort of sentence? Like, yeah, if Majors gets it, that's one thing. But we're getting into this whole area at this point in time where it kind of seems like
a double standard.
Well, no, like we're getting the Amber Heard territory at this fucking point, and I'm starting to just get uncomfortable with the way that the other, like the defendant, the prosecuting lawyer is coming out with their fucking statement.
Painting a narrative, like just because he's not admitting that he's guilty. Clearly, he's guilty.
Yeah,
and it's
because he doesn't say X means Y and Z are fucking absolutely true. So, like, I understand why he is being selective in the way that he is crafting his statement here. But that seems like, honestly, it seems like a very big reach, but it also seems like he's not wrong. He would have been shot.
Yep.
Like,
yeah.
And even the analogy he was talking about with Coretta Scott and Michelle Obama, I've watched a few reactions to this, and a lot of people have informed me, like the Coretta Scott thing, they all think that that's an interesting analogy because, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, had multiple affairs and he was around, and that's kind of his point. It was like, because I guess the whole backstory of this is essentially that he wanted to sleep around, and that caused all their tension and their drama. And, you know, that's what's I think there's someone said at one point, but there's two different sides or two different like extensions of this. Is like, you can be a terrible man and you can be a terrible husband. That doesn't mean you're an abuser. And I feel like that this is a scenario where it's like, if someone hits you, you might accidentally reflex or whatever. And once again, I mentioned at the very top where it's like putting her in, and then he mentioned it, putting her in the car, that's always going to be the worst look because you physically have your hands on her. There's no, regardless of the damage, that narrative is painted.
But it's not like he Ray Lewis to anybody. It's not
no, absolutely. Like, but I'm saying from a
no, absolutely,
and their inability, and this is, I hate bringing movie Battleground into this, but you know, it's like in debate, if a narrative is in a jury's, a judge's mind, it's hard for them to think otherwise, regardless of the other facts and your other points. Yeah. So the fact that he physically put his hands on her, he didn't strike her, which is why I said that was a purposeful phrasing. He didn't strike her, but he did put his hands on her. So the fact that there was physical evidence that he put his hands on her, it was hard for the jury to say, well, you put your hands on her at one point, so I assume you probably did it again, and she has scratches. So the odds of it being from something else, I don't believe that. So it had to be you. But we can't prove it, so we can't say you.
But the other weird part on that one is they accept all of the pictures of what happened to her, but none of the pictures that happened to him.
That's the one.
And I think I think the only thing that really matters at that point in time is the fact that it was somebody else who took the pictures of her, and it was probably somebody in like a position of power, not like a position of power over this case, but it was probably like law enforcement. Exactly.
That's what they said when they came to the apartment. And they found her unconscious. They took the pictures then, and then that's just whatever. But at the end of the day, allegedly, Johnathan came home and found her like that. So maybe at some point, he never denied that it happened from her, or he denied the fingers. So technically, he said, "Yeah, I have no idea." So that's the gray area where it's like no one knows. But with that said, that's reasonable doubt, right? But automatically throw away his pictures and his tangible evidence of cuts.
Amber Heard still didn't get charged, even though she fucking called Johnny Depp out and was like, "Oh yeah, call the police, let them know that I slapped you." I'm not trying to take away from this. I'm trying to like
add to it,
bridge the fucking gap between it, because Johnathan Majors did almost everything correct in this situation, and is still getting.
I actually like that he whether it's on purpose, whether it's a PR move or whatever, but I do really do like the fact that this interview isn't perfect because it doesn't feel like you're just saying the right thing.
Like he's just getting fed lines.
Yeah, I do
and
feel
being
like there are a
response.
few answers that he says. I don't know if we've gotten to the point yet, or like or like when he asked her, he's like, did you hurt her? And he's like, I hurt her emotionally.
Yeah, I hurt her heart.
He technically didn't say no, I never hurt her. He answered later and said he never put a hands on a woman. But once again, just the avoidance.
Never struck. Oh, yeah. I never went fucking.
Hands.
I never treated a woman like Donnie fucking Creed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but at the exact same point in time, when you watch the video of him running away after they've walked across the street, he is quite clearly trying to get out of her grasp, and she is not letting go.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody's first response is, "Oh, she's not letting go. Let me stop." In a situation where I don't want to be.
I bet you at some point there are clips of that when they're across the street and he yanks away from her. It looks like he like pulls her arm. If you could probably put yourself in that mindset of, oh, he's yanking her arm and then running away and she just didn't follow him type of deal. And then he's running away because maybe someone you know what I mean? There's ways that all this BS can be. Once again,
I escorted her across the street. Is phrasing.
But that's the thing I'm talking about.
They did go slowly. They did go slowly. So that's
he's not like clearly physically dragging her across.
That is a better usage of.
I'm talking about after they're already across the street
and yanks away.
Yeah, he tries. Like you can clearly see him trying to run, and she pulls on his arm, and then he yanks.
I think that's when
he starts booking down the fucking street.
I think that's when he got the phone back or in full possession. And once he got the phone back, that was his whole goal. And he's like, I'm out because that's whatever. And once again,
also, I'm Johnathan Majors. I can dick down whoever the fuck I want.
Exactly. He's being a bad boyfriend and he's being a bad guy, but he's not being an abuser in that situation. So there's a situation. It's just a bummer.
Abuse is never acceptable in any form. It doesn't matter whether it's mental or physical. It doesn't matter whether it's coming from male or female. Anybody who doesn't corroborate with those fucking gender spectrums. Abuse is abuse and it should never be tolerated. But telling somebody that they are losing their job for trying not to get abused is a little bit of a wild one.
And that's it's going to be tough to. So I think Disney did the smart thing in this situation by separating themselves for now. Let them have a good look of like, hey, we released, but give it enough time. Give him the opportunity to.
So it's the James Gunn situation all over again.
Give him enough opportunity. They're essentially, for all we know, this is Disney giving him. They rehearsed him for all we know. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, we're gonna on paper separate, but we're still gonna be talking. You know what I mean? So because think about it. What was everyone's first question when he got fired? No, there was no immediate replacement of Kang. Because they're still keeping the door open because they genuinely believe that right now,
or they're going to shift massively, which I don't see them. I don't see them course correcting.
I think the only thing
is there's enough time to figure it out and potentially not have to shift. So they're biding time for now to see what happens. Essentially, they're literally trying to savor the public eyes for now because their property is already down and
damaged. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So having this is just going to make it worse. So I think it was a smart move to not 100%. I think there's a world where he could come back. I genuinely still believe it. And
Tato, we didn't mean to cut you off. What were you trying to say, bro?
Tato, what are your thoughts? The MCU. The MCU. What do you think?
Yeah. Just that they changed the working titles for Avengers 5 and 6.
Yeah, but that doesn't change. You know what I mean? Once again, working titles still. I still genuinely think they put themselves in a position where 2 years down the road, people are going to be like, oh, if think about it. In a year from now, if you don't 100% hate Johnathan Majors, you probably are so 50-50 that if people are like, hey, it ended up being not that bad, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that he, whatever. You know, I figure there's a way that time will heal.
I primarily know him from Creed 3, Lovecraft Country, which they showed the end of Loki. And I wasn't a giant fan of a lot of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. He wasn't bad in the movie. He hasn't been bad in anything that I've personally seen him act in. Is like, it goes back to what was being said earlier. Is being a good actor going to be the saving grace for somebody who has ultimately been disgraced like that? Like, no, it's not. Obviously, it fucking shouldn't be. Has it happened and has it been perpetuating in Hollywood for a very long time? Yes, we all know people, actors, producers. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Harvey Weinsteins of the fucking world, being terrible fucking individuals, and they're just now getting their comeuppance. Do I think that this is personally, in my opinion, do I think that this is in that same category, in that same boat? Absolutely not. And I think this is an overreaction to a protection of a brand that has already kind of been taking a hit over the last decade because they haven't been able to come up with any fucking original ideas. I'm looking at you, House of Mouse. You ain't really had anything that's fucking original in more than 25 years. You just want to do remakes and fucking reboots. Get your shit together.
Or bland new stories.
Yeah, new stories.
Yeah. I mean, they're based on comic books, so they're not new, but they're telling us new story, but they're not that great for a reason because they're bland. They're right. So yeah. All right, let's see how this ends up, and then we can finish our overall opinions. But this is, I'm glad we're shining this light.
Again, I know what happened. Movies don't matter. Work don't matter. Yale education doesn't matter. In that moment, what I felt was, oh, I'm nothing.
Throughout the trial, Major's girlfriend, actress Megan Good, was right by his side. She was also
shout out to that beret.
Conversation.
You've mentioned Megan a few times.
Yeah.
We've seen her right by your side, going in and out of court throughout the whole trial.
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship?
It's a miracle. She's an angel. She's held me down like a Coretta, you know. I'm so blessed to have her, you know.
Notice he didn't play like a Michelle.
Still fresh, but you know, I think I found her. Yeah.
The one.
I hope she just stick with me.
Major's career as a rising Hollywood actor is now in limbo. Future appearances playing Kang the Conqueror in the Marvel Cinematic Universe have been scrapped.
You hear the verdict.
Yeah.
The same day Marvel drops you. Your reaction?
Same hour. Same half hour, I think. It's like the world stopped.
Mm.
You know, it's like you work so hard for things. And then, you know, it's done, you know? And in that same breath, I thought, man, that was cool.
How so?
I was a supervillain, you know? And I got to play multiple characters, you know, with a group of people that really cared nothing about anything else except making really cool movies and giving their actors whatever they need.
I like he's just being himself right now.
Tell those stories. And I'm so proud of it.
You think you'll ever work in Hollywood again?
Yeah, I do. I pray I do. But it's God's plan and God's timing.
For those who say, look, he's convicted at this point.
It's over.
What would you say? I mean, do you deserve a second chance?
Well, I think I do. I think I think I do. I hope other people think that.
Majors is set to be sentenced next month, but says he and his legal team plan to appeal.
Hi. All right. Final thoughts just on the interview. Tato, I'll start with you. What are your just overall thoughts?
All right, so the dude clearly has issues. Who among us doesn't? This strikes me as a situation where maybe both parties in the relationship do suck a bit, and should probably have not been together. I do have the yuck on the way he put her back in the car. Fucking, like, I don't want to judge or anything, but it feels like he definitely could have gotten away from her with less injury to her. There was shit going on in the car that we couldn't see. I don't think he grabbed her finger and fucking snapped it on some major pain shit or anything like that, but he probably did accidentally break her finger, give her the cut behind her ear in that physical altercation. That's probably what happened.
And you got to think about it. He's a big ass motherfucker. To him just reaching for his phone in her hand, it could have happened. But once
exactly,
again, that's the intentional harm thing. That is that conviction work. You know,
and the candle situation, like, yeah. So the dude probably has anger issues, and the way he's phrasing that he's never struck a woman, like maybe he did strangle the shit out of her at some point too, like outside of this situation, like there's enough that I've seen and based on the way he is talking to give me the yuck on the man. Like I don't like the way he handled that situation. It's strike, but again, fucking situations be crazy and shit. And I do believe in second chances. He probably will get a second chance in Hollywood. It doesn't strike me as like he's maybe he's not a terrible person. It doesn't strike me as he's a super good dude. That's for sure. Like, super good people don't end up in this situation at all usually. So, and like the way he's talking, like about her, like the whole, like, maybe it is a failed analogy, but like, yeah, just big, yeah. Give me, I'm getting the yuck on the dude.
All right, so if you were Disney, and whatever, say a year goes by, whether Kang or not, would you bring him back, or is he 100% done for you?
I guess I would just have to read the room at the time, probably. I would say right now I would lean towards done.
I'll follow up to make it easier in terms of just the room. So they said he's going to be sentenced next month or whatever. So say they were able to get the appeal and he's able to avoid jail time. No jail time, maybe probation, yada, 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 but no actual jail time. Does that affect it anyway?
Let's see, a year down the line, we're in 2025. We're 5 months before Avengers 5 is supposed to come out.
Exactly. Probably right around the time shooting is starting. So that's why it's a year down the road.
It's going to be a no from me, dog. Going to be a no from me.
Okay. All right, Jay, what is your overall opinions on that entire interview?
There are certain things that are said in this interview, and just the way that they might be said are not necessarily concerning. They don't give me the ick. They don't give me the yuck. It's not the way that I'm used to speaking. Yeah. So like, I'm not gonna say anything on that. I think a lot of the evidence that's presented there kind of speaks for itself. Do I think that he should be back? Yeah. You know, we paused, we talked about it a little bit. Do I think that he will be back? I give it more of a positive than I give it a negative. But like Disney MCU, Disney Marvel has not made the best decisions in the last little while when it comes to casting. Do I think that his career is over? No, I don't. I think just the caliber of actor that the man is will he have to take a little while off? Yeah. Can he do that? Absolutely. But like, do I think that he's cooked? No.
All right. So a follow-up for you, based on this case, pre this interview, but given all the information that was given in the interview for the trial case, would you have fired him?
No, personally, no, because if I'm a portion of a studio and I have to look at what an individual's character is, and I see and I hear, and I'm going to bring it up again, everything it is that Amber Heard did to Johnny Depp or what they did to each other in that toxic ass relationship that they were a part of, she still got to be in Aquaman 2. Was that a punishment from the courts? I don't know. I don't know how the judge feels.
Did they see the script ahead of time?
Yeah,
and say, but that's jail time, Aquaman 2, bitch.
but that's my thing, is it's like, cool, you have a woman who is essentially accused of just about the exact same shit, with the exception of we know that she is the result, she is the end reason why Johnny Depp lost a tip of his finger, which is more than a broken finger. I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna compare like losing a finger versus getting a middle finger broken
And
is
feces.
yeah, and shitting in beds is completely
dog
fucking
weighed
different.
2 pounds. There's no way the dog could have.
My duck stepped on a bee. But like there's so much shit that happened that could be comparable, and the white person gets to keep their job. Like personally, I would have been like, no, I don't think Johnathan Majors.
Hold on. I will add on to that the white female, which is
the white female got to keep her job.
It's just
but,
it's just a tough time for this situation, which is ironic. So I will say that this situation, regardless of the facts and the overall opinions, it is a downfall of just the racism that the black man's always going to be down in. Just obviously three white men saying this, but it's just facts that we're able to be impartial and show that because Johnathan Majors as a big black man, it just automatically is going to have that negative, that it's a weighted situation no matter what. It's automatically an uphill battle, and that's why what he said about being shot down the street, if the roles were reversed 1,000%, if he was chasing her, he's dead. Like there's no interview, there's no firing from Disney, there's death. He's DOA.
Yeah, there's bullets being thrown down range.
So I do 100%
the way people perceive shit.
Yeah. And I 100% agree that that's how that situation would be handled. So I agree with you in the situation of like it's a shame that we'll never live in an unbiased world, regardless. Facts can be facts, but opinions rule the world, and that's why I keep mentioning the headline stuff, because like no matter what is presented to you, you can never be unbiased, and that's from anyone, even from me. We're always gonna have biases that's going to hinder our ability to truly see a situation as it is, because we're always going to have those glasses on no matter what, even if it's just a 1% tint. 1% could be the difference of jail, no jail, fire, not fired, hit, not hit, scratch, you know what I mean? So accident, not accident, you know what I mean? So it's a shame. And just to wrap up my opinion, I genuinely think that he put himself in, like what he said, he put himself in too many positions for it even to be questionable. Putting her in the truck or in the car, 100%, he did that. The amount of force used and the results of that, we'll never truly know the one for one in the actual evidence of seeing him put his hand on her. But being in a situations where they're clearly yanking for the phone, like Tato said, I 100% finger out jammed. He's so big and she's so tiny. If you see pictures of her, she's skinny. You know what I mean? She's tiny. You know what I mean? So even if it was incidental, so I 100% understand the jury's like incidental, but still the full charges of like Jay said, enough to lose your job and lose your career. I still don't think that it was enough. And I was saying this even just from hearing the situation, just even when I was interpreting the headlines, just because I just know that if the headlines are gray, then there's more. Like I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, I want to be proven wrong. I want all the facts. I don't just guilty upon arrival, not happening. I want to hear the facts, and it's just a shame that that's just not how society works. So we'll see what happens with Johnathan Majors. I genuinely think that it would be smart for Disney to bring him back, because it gives Disney the backbone to say, hey, we stand beside him, even if they're able to use it to some sort of stupid white collar, smart men in business suits, like we're going to fix him type of bullshit. Even if they're able to, somehow make them look good in the situation, we're giving second chances. We're giving the black man a second, however they want to phrase it. Yeah. I figure there's a narrative that they can spin to make them look better than they are, while in reality, they're just saving the tank that is the MCU right now, and that they're their property. And even if he doesn't get back into Marvel, I 100% know that Johnathan Majors will be back working. Unfortunately, like we were talking about at the beginning with comedy is more independent in the sense of selling tickets is based on the audience showing up, whereas being movies, you have to be in the movies to get people to show up. But with that said, I do think that Johnathan Majors will be back in movies. How big, we don't know. But by the time he's dead, we're going to see him in at least one more blockbuster. I can guarantee that. Regardless of the property, he'll be in at least one more. He's too talented. Obviously, barring any future incidents. So I will say that, because barring any future incidents. But I will say there's also two sides of tango. He's been with Megan, even if it's all whether it's a planted relationship, it's a fake just to make him look good, showing like, hey, I was in a relationship with her and I haven't hit her. Or maybe he's really in a relationship, he hasn't hit her. So it also, maybe that's the case. Maybe she was just crazy, and it's the old thing like Bill Burr's bit. You know, you until you snap. You know what I mean? I'm not justifying it, but once again, it takes two to tango. So even though we can all agree Johnathan Majors isn't great, he might not be that bad. So let's give him time to rewrite his narrative, and we'll see what happens a year down the road and on. So yeah, I think we can end it there. A little longer one. Obviously, do some editing. I'll get it closer to an hour than than whatever. But Tato, final thoughts.
Yeah, good episode. I was not as super well informed on the Katt thing and stuff like that, nor on the Majors thing, but it's good to see. I'm glad we got to look at that interview and stuff. Do
you feel more motivated post both situations after the discussion?
Yeah, and I had meant to watch the Shannon podcast. It's just I've got like shit popping off with trying to watch a movie a day and stay trained in the MCU. Shit like that.
Stay trained? I mean, a train?
Yeah. But yeah, always good to kick it with the boys. Taking it back.
And Jay, final thoughts.
This is great. I know a lot of, and this is the thing that I love about words. I know a lot of the things that I brought up is kind of like a negative when it comes to Katt. I brought up as a positive when it comes to Johnathan, and it does bring up a little bit of that are you biased in this situation? But no, like not all situations are the exact same. So take what I say with both of them with a grain of salt. It's always great to have a conversation. Hopefully, that conversation between all three of us is constructive at the end of the day. And that's what matters the most. Granted, we're going to make dumbass poses and we're going to do stupid shit.
Maybe use a little bit of our words out of context for clickbait titles. Maybe, but algorithms get algorithms. So it is what it is. But I'll make sure I'm fair on all that. I'm going to post at least 3 different shorts where all of us say some wild things. But really, if you watch the video.
Fuck Johnathan Majors. Fuck him up his stupid ass.
My name's
He's
Henry
fucking clown shoes.
By the way, did you see his jeans he was wearing? That was one thing when I was watching one of the ones where like,
Yo.
This is not the time to show up with a fashion statement. You should have been in the most Barney of How I Met Your Mother suit up, baby. He was wearing some fucking, I don't know what he was wearing. That's not the point. My name's Henry Confidential. That is Tato Lore, and that is Jay. Follow him on twitchtv.com/Loose Theron. This is the Taking It Back podcast. If you got ass, you can't afford it. See y'all episode 3.
The fuck's a Z job?